Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lords of Limited. My name is Ben Warney, and joining me on the line, as always, Mr. Ethan, the Hunger Tide Rises Sachs. Ethan, I know you are a lover of grist, a lover of food. Does grist appeal to you?
Grist does. Is that the card you're referring to? Is that the Hunger Tide Rises?
Yeah, it's Grist the Hunger Tide, right? That's his saga.
It's a mythic. I can't look at that, right? Like I'm not focusing on mythics or rares. If it has a gold or an orange symbol, I skip past it during
No,
preview
I'm
season.
pretty sure this is an uncommon saga. No, it is a rare mythic. Never mind, you're right.
You've set me up for failure, and I won't have any part of this. I love Grist. I'm happy to see that he's back in larva form, I guess. I did see that card. That was part of the preview video, right?
Yes.
It's like a 1 mana. I do like the throwback to the Flip Planeswalkers. It reminds me of the Flip Planeswalkers from, oh gosh, what was that set that wasn't a core set but was a core set? Origins, Magic Origins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, feels good. Can you believe it? We're already in new set season.
Already in new set season, you're fresh off the heels of an Arena Open run where you sent me a picture of the deck you drafted in Draft 1, and it was the most Ethan Sachs deck I have ever seen in my entire life. It was like a Mardu brew that had tons of small sacrifice synergies and crime synergies everywhere, just working to eke out those edges.
I don't like easy wins. Like you can give other people can have their Bonnie Pauls, okay? Just give me a Bandit's Hall and a Deadeye Duelist, and I'll be drawing an extra card every other turn, you know?
Living that life.
Just can't wait to live that life. Yeah, we had another Arena Open this weekend. I'm diving into RCQ season this weekend. I'm going to play some Pioneer. I'm really dreading that actually, but I'm really hyped to play an MH3 limited RCQ in 2 weekends. That's gonna be super fun. But for
We're just
now,
going to queue at the limited one, so skip the Pioneer one, right?
that's what I wish. That's what I wish. I wish the limited one was first. So I'll just queue at that one, and I don't have to worry about the Pioneer one. I'll just have to worry about Pioneer for the actual RC. Whatever. That's future Ethan's problem. But present Ethan gets to look at these sweet Modern Horizons 3 previews. So we've got a ton of cards already. We're recording this on Memorial Day, Monday, the 27th. So the day that this will be released. So I think we're all up to date on the cards that have been previewed, the official cards that have been previewed. We don't handle leaks here, and then we'll have the crash course for you as always next week. But for now, let's dive into some housekeeping and then get into the show. First things first is the Patreon page. Patreon.com/Lords of Limited is where folks can go to give back to the show if they so choose. New set season, Arena Open season. I mean, what better time to give back via the Patreon and get access to the Lords of Limited Discord? It was really fun to get to watch people's Arena Open runs this weekend via the Discord, see some folks get that top prize of $2,000. That's always awesome to cheer people on about. And great to get to pick everybody's brain as we're all speculating. And, once the full spoiler comes out, we'll be making tier lists and comparing them and top rankings and all that stuff. Really fun to get to dive in as much as possible. And practice drafts popped off last set. So I'm excited to see those probably pop off again via the Discord for this set as well. So a lot of great stuff via the Patreon as you move up the reward tier rankings a little bit higher, but the Discord is a great thing to shout out. And of course, we also want to shout out our new patrons the first week that they join. So this week we're welcoming Dr. G, H. Tite, Lowell, David, Devin, and Brian. Thank you. We really appreciate your support.
Yeah, cannot say thank you enough. You better believe I'm going to be leading the charge on the old practice drafts now that it's hashtag summer. I am so psyched that MH3 is our summer set.
It's pretty awesome. So, we usually like to run through the new and returning mechanics in this segment of the episode. I went to read the mechanics article and I was like, oh,
scroll down. The scroll bar was like an eighth of an inch big.
Exactly. Well, they start off with talking about some, errated stuff like Kindred and Umbra armor. I was like, okay, cool. And then they get into talking about energy coming back and bestow coming back and every single thing coming back. There's over 40 returning mechanics in this format. There are no new mechanics, but for some people, there may be new mechanics.
There's going to be like 20 new mechanics for some people, yeah.
Right. So, but we won't be going over them. I will have a link to the article where you download the show if you want to check it out yourself. But we'll also be touching on the mechanics as we come to them in the individual cards that we'll chat about in the episode.
But I would say if listening to that, if you're like, ooh, I don't know if this is for me, maybe I'll just skip this format. Like you just got to that point in the episode and had that impulse. Like I think for people who are always like, well, I'd really like to cube, but it's really hard to get into. Like do this with us. Like this is a bridge to like how you get
Mm.
to cubing, I think, right? Because it's gonna be more complex. It's gonna be a bunch of cards you don't know, a bunch of mechanics you don't know potentially, but everybody will be learning it together at the same time instead of like the intimidating thing about cube is three-fourths of the cubing population has a huge leg up on anybody that's a new cuber, right? Because
Hmm.
they just know all the cards and the synergies and the archetypes. But if this feels overwhelming to you, give it a try, learn it with us, and I think this will be a bridge to get you to cubing if you're one of those types of people.
I love that. Love that philosophy. The major themes, I think, energy's coming back, modified as a way to talk about any kind of creature augmentation, whether it's auras, whether it's equipment, whether it's +1/+1 counters, and Eldrazi and all that comes with them being devoid and wastes and colorless mana and all that stuff. Those are the three big themes coming back in Modern Horizons 3. We also, as we dive into the two color pair archetypes, we usually have an archetype article that's just like, this is what it is. Blue green is big plot. Well, we don't have that this time around. It seems that each color pair is going to get an uncommon signpost, an uncommon hybrid modal double-faced card. That's another big theme that's back, is MDFCs are back, and a common, but no idea. That's just sort of piecing together what we have so far. It seems like each color pair gets those three. So we'll be listing them as we go through the color pairs and then sort of trying to divine, if we can, what the color pair is maybe trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first up is red black. What's going on there?
We've got Blood-Soaked Insight, which is 5 Rakdos hybrid mana for an MDFC. It's a sorcery, an uncommon. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Target opponent exiles the top 3 cards of their library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. If you cast a spell this way, mana of any type can be spent to cast it. So a little card advantage there. And then on the backside, the sweetest thing about all these MDFCs is they're dual lands. So
Yeah.
the ones that are uncommon here are ETB tap dual lands. So on the back, this is Sanguine Morass, which is a black red ETB tapped dual.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how you're going to think about them. I mean, it's so hard to know. But when I look at this card, I think about this as, if I'm black red, this is an ETB tapped duel for me. And then if I happen to top deck it when I have 7 mana or whatever, or I crack in for a bunch and want some card advantage, sure, I can cast Blood-Soaked Insight. But I mean, just gravy that this is a land. And we'll chat about MDFCs, I think, probably not this episode, probably in the crash course we'll get to them, but just like the last time we saw them was Zendikar Rising, and I personally went on a big journey with MDFCs. I was like, okay, these are completely broken, they just 1-for-1 replace lands, like you just draft them super highly. In Zendikar Rising, that didn't, what ended up being how you wanted to draft that format was find the deck you're supposed to draft and then hopefully scoop up 2 to 3 MDFCs that are in your color pair once you know what that is, instead of what I wanted to do, which is just scoop up all the MDFCs and build these like 12 land, 28 spell piles. It's a new set, so maybe the 12 land, 28 spell pile life will be alive and well. But for now, I think just thinking about this as a land is where I'm going to be at.
Right, but I think we'll have to see what the fixing looks like once we get the whole format to actually see, how valuable is that ETB tapped dual land going to be.
Right. The other uncommon here is Pyretic Rebirth. 2 black red for an instant. Return target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Pyretic Rebirth deals damage equal to that card's mana value to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. What's interesting to me is that neither of these uncommons seem to be doing what I think red-black is doing, which is artifacts.
Which is just artifact synergy. Yeah, that is my guess as well, based on a lot of the red and black uncommon cards we've seen previewed. But, I mean, this is a good card.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad card at all. It requires some setup, right? Like you can't really think of it as it's not your 4-mana removal spell.
No, classic red-black graveyard stuff, though.
Classic. Well, and the thing that really lets you know that this is an artifact color pair is the common Cranial Ram, black-red for an equipment with Living Weapon. So Living Weapon is back. That's when this equipment enters the battlefield, it's like a play on auto-equip. You create a 0/0 black Phyrexian Germ creature token, then attach this to it. An equipped creature gets +X+1, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and it has an equipped cost of 2. It's just cranial plating is back with a
This card
creature.
is broken,
This card's
right?
broken.
Like, this
Yeah.
card is
Imminently
super
going to be
insane.
banned in Pauper, I think, as they just banned All That Glitters. But yeah, this card seems awesome.
Like, way better than both of the uncommons. Like, this is the red-black archetype, presumably, and you will want as many copies of this as you can get, and it will be insanely good in your red-black deck.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to have to do a little bit of tempering on card evals. Like, what would normally look like a good card in a
Right.
draft set, right? Like a 2-mana deal 4 or whatever, or something, in something as powerful and synergistic as we presume Modern Horizons 3 is going to be a little less good than normal. Like, this looks crazy powerful to me in what I expect to be a very powerful set.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good shout. We don't have much previewed for blue-white yet. Hard to know what blue-white is doing.
We do have the MDFC. So we've got Suppression Ray, which is 3 Azorius for a sorcery to uncommon. Tap all creatures target player controls. You may pay X energy, then choose up to X creatures tapped this way. Put a stun counter on each of them. So Sleep is back on an MDFC. That's powerful because Sleep's very situational, right? Like, either wins you the game or doesn't do a whole lot. Love that. And then it's blue-white ETB tapped duel on the back.
So presumably Azorius is doing something with energy, right? Because this card doesn't even make energy. You have to have energy from elsewhere. And we do know, we've seen blue cards and white cards that make energy, but I don't know if that's like what Azorius's identity will be.
Yeah, it seems like energy is in the Jeskai wedge.
Correct.
To me, from what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see what blue-white is. I have question mark next to blue-white in our show notes about what it's doing.
Blue-black also has question mark, but we know what blue-black is doing, baby.
I think we do.
Wants to draw 3 cards every turn. You love to see it.
The draw 3 cards thing is just awesome. I didn't really quite get it until I was looking through the other cards in the card file, but this first one does sort of hint at it. It's Horrid Shadow Spinner, 1 blue-black for a 2/3 horror with lifelink at uncommon. When it attacks, you may draw cards equal to its power, which is 2, and if you do, you discard that many cards. So that'll be 2 in addition to your draw step, and that'll draw 3 cards for your turn. And there are, as we'll get to a little later, a lot of payoffs for having drawn 3 cards in a turn. They've never done this before. 3-for-1s are the new 2-for-1s, Ben.
You'll love to see it. We called it in the 50 takes. I'm excited about this archetype. It seems cool, and it seems like it's enabled, and it seems like the payoffs are there.
I also feel like there's going to be some, not growing pains, but little things where you go, oh, that helps me draw 3 cards in a turn, you know? Like, even one you put down there, I was like, oh yeah, duh. Like, drawing 2 cards in addition to your draw step will do it. So
divination, yes. Baby. All right, we've also got Waterlogged Teachings, which is the MDFC, which is 3 and a Dimir for an instant. Search your library for an instant card or a card with flash, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle.
Cool. And then on the back, it's an ETB tapped blue-black duel. It seems great. Again, like, I just love that. I do think like most of these so far strike me as like 90% of the time they're going to be lands, but the 10% of the time, they're really powerful effects.
This one's slotting right into the old vintage cube, right?
I don't know. Is it? I guess so. That's so expensive.
But it's free. It's an ETB tapped duel. It's free. It's not expensive.
Free, he said. What's going on with red-green?
Red-green, we've got Eldrazi ? So we're going to take a look at the MDFC first here, which is Stomp. It's 1 and a Gruul for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control for a Gruul effect there. And then a red-green ETB tapped duel on the other side.
This is a departure, right? This is not a game-breaking effect on the front side. This is like a very theoretically desirable effect for a limited deck on the front side that's cheap. So this will be maybe a bit more of a decision of whether to play it out if it's in your opener, do you play it out or not? And then the common we have spoiled as well, Writhing Chrysalis, 2 red-green for a 2/3, which is devoid. So devoid means the card has no color, despite it being 2 red-green for the cost. The card has no color. And when you cast the spell, you make 2/0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with. Sacrifice this creature, add Wingdings Wingdings is back. So this is the colorless mana that it adds, that Wastes adds. And we'll get to Wastes being back a little later. So it's a 2/3 with reach, comes in with 2 Eldrazi spawn. And whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, you put a +1/+1 counter on Writhing Chrysalis.
It tracks that the man who is obsessed with Comic Sans also is a fan of Wingdings. For those of you who are not obsessed with Twitter, Ethan tweeted that his toxic trait was that he thinks Comic Sans is a good font.
No, don't put words in my mouth. I said I think Comic Sans is fun. I think it's fun, and I stand by that take. And I think Wingdings is, I don't think the font Wingdings is fun, but I think referring to this mana symbol as Wingdings is fun.
Fun. So fun. Thank you for bringing fun to the podcast.
I'm just trying. Somebody has to do it. We'll get to more of the Eldrazi cards a little bit later. And this is, again, as Ben talked about, energy being in the Jeskai wedge. Like, a lot of the stuff exists across, like, there's things in 2 colors, but there's a lot of bleed among them. Like, +1/+1 counters may exist somewhere, and then modified exists somewhere else. And that sort of has an umbrella. I think for Eldrazi/Devoid, that exists in the Teamer wedge, it seems like.
Yeah. All right, that takes us on to green-white, which is looking like Enchantress. First up, we've got Golden Tail Trainer here. 1 green-white for a 1/3 Fox Samurai creature at uncommon. It says, aura and equipment spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is Golden Tail Trainer's power. And whenever it attacks, other modified creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Golden Tail Trainer's power. I know you love some Enchantress archetypes.
I know, this is too much text here, and none of it says draw a card. None of it's like, when you cast an aura, draw a card. That's what I want to do with my, I don't know about this 3 mana 1/3. It's got it, then you got to suit it up, and then you attack. I mean, this is powerful. Like, this can get big and out of control in a hurry, but the floor of it here has me scratch my head a little bit.
Well, but the nice part about this format is we get the good auras and the good equipments, right? We get the equipments you're going to be playing with. They're going to be living weapon equipments. They're already going to be creatures. The auras are going to be bestow creatures. And if you've not played with bestow before, you put a creature onto another creature and it gets all the effects of that creature. And then when the bestowed creature dies, you're still left with the enchantment creature left over. So it's pretty powerful on both ends of those.
Yeah. Well, and the MDFC uncommon that we have is Strength of the Harvest. It's 2 and a Selesnya hybrid for an aura enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature and or enchantment you control. So the floor of this is it gives a thing +2/+2 because it's on a creature and this is an enchantment. But like, really not hard for this to just come down and be some exorbitant number, which is pretty exciting for in tandem with Golden Tail Trainer.
Yeah, it reminds me of all the glitters from Eldraine, just tacked onto an MDFC here, all upside. That card could hit hard.
Yeah, for sure. And that had the sort of like, that only counted artifacts and enchantments, not creatures and enchantments, which is pretty big.
Black-white, moving on here. Looks like it might be doing some things with modified or +1/+1 counters. So first we're going to take a look at the MDFC. This is Glasswing Grace, which is 3 Orzhov for an aura. It says enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has flying and lifelink. Holy cow, is that going to accidentally win some games of limited?
Yes.
And then a white-black dual land on the other side.
This is just such a nice like throwback to like Sarah's Embrace, like the Embrace cycle from Urza Saga or whatever. I was obsessed. I felt like Sarah's Embrace was one of the most busted cards I'd ever seen. Like, wait, you just turn anything into Sarah Angel? Yeah, Glasswing Grace is going to be really good. And then we've got Ondu Knotmaster, 2 white-black for a 2/2 with lifelink. It says, whenever another modified creature you control dies, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Ondu Knotmaster. And it's got an adventure, throw a line, white-black sorcery, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. I'm in. Yeah, I like this card a lot.
It's not like, I don't think it's insane. The adventure is honestly more appealing than the main body.
Yes, I agree. Right, but I'm just like, I see that adventure and I'm like, what nice 1-drops does white and black get, so that you can just go 1-drop, throw a line, dump 2 counters on it, and then you've got Ondu Knotmaster waiting in the wings. I like that a lot.
Blue-red is looking like it's got some energy shenanigans going on. Oof. The uncommon here is it Generatorium? I am going to be living in the old Generatorium, I have a feeling.
Every preview episode, whatever blue-red is, you're like, I'm going to be doing that. I like that.
I'm an Izzet mage at heart. I'm
You
guilty as
are.
charged. Blue-red uncommon artifact. If draw 2 cards, or what was it? Cast 2
Cast 2
spells per
spells?
turn. Worst
Yeah.
archetype. Sign me up. I'm there.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Uncommon for an artifact here. If you would get 1 or more energy tokens, you get that many plus another energy instead. And then you can tap to draw a card. Activate only if you've paid or lost 4 or more energy this turn. You can't be losing energy. You got to be finding energy.
Yeah, wait, how do you lose energy? That's such weird wording.
I don't know.
I guess you can remove counters from
proliferating if people
like you can reverse proliferate or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you remove counters from a permanent or player? Probably.
I don't know.
Anyway, that's just weird. I'd never seen lost energy before. Okay, so 2 mana for an energy, not doubler, but you get an additional energy every time you get energy. And then once you've paid, this is
your own personal Howling Mine. This card is great.
But this is not your own personal Howling Mine. You have to have things that make energy, and you have to have ways to spend that energy.
Like I said, your own personal Howling Mine.
Oh, yeah, those are not big asks, but like this on its own does actual nothing.
Well, you have to pay for energy, which is kind of a big ask. It's not just paying any energy.
What I mean is that it's not a big ask to stock your blue-red Energy Matters deck with ways to make energy and ways to spend that energy. But
sure, yeah. So we're on the same page. Personal Howling Mine. Great.
We've also got Rush of Inspiration. It's 1 Is It for an instant. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card at random unless you pay 2 energy. Gonna slot right. I'm just gonna snap this up for my blue-black draw 3 deck. I don't know if this energy player is gonna get it. And then it's a blue-red ETB tapped duel on the other side.
All right, that takes us on to black-green, which is dealing with some +1/+1 counters, which is then going to overlap, presumably, with Selesnya to give you some modified synergy in the Abzan wedge there. So we've got our common here from Abzan. This is Expanding Ooze, 1 black-green for a 3/3 ooze at common. It's got the ability black-green adapt 1, so you can pay black-green, and then if it has no +1/+1 counters on it, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on target modified creature you control. So it can target itself.
So just like on rate and then can be big dumb and then bigger and dumber as the game progresses.
You love it. I mean, this is not... I certainly, like, if you compare Expanding Ooze to Cranial Ram or whatever, like, Cranial Ram just laughs at it. Like, Cranial Ram's probably going to be a B+ or something, and I imagine Expanding Ooze is going to be playable and not pull you into black-green at all. But I mean,
poor black-green. Poor black-green. We've also got Revitalizing Pass, which is a black-green hybrid for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Snakeskin Veil. What did they do? What have they done to my boy? I played against someone who had 3 Snakeskin Veils in the Arena Open yesterday.
And that was, I'm sure, a very pleasant experience for you.
It was very pleasant and not at all difficult to interact with favorably. And then the backside, of course, is a black-green ETB tapped duel. Brings us on to red-white, which looks to be energy as well, but more in an aggro space. So we've got the hybrid here. The hybrid MDFC is 1 red-white for Legion Leadership. It has an instant until end of turn, double target creature's power, and it gains first strike. Wah wah.
Yeah, that's fine. Next, we've got Scurry of Gremlins, which is the headliner for red-white. This is 2 red-white for an uncommon enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red gremlin creature tokens. Then you get an amount of energy equal to the number of creatures you control. And at any time with this enchantment on the battlefield, you can pay for energy to give creatures you control +1/+0 and haste until end of turn.
Here's a place to spend 4 energy.
Place to spend 4 energy. There's also a card we're going to get to later that lets you pick up stuff that I am obsessed with. This is great. This is going to be great to pick up.
That's so sick. Conduit Goblin is the common. It's red-white for a 2/2. When it ETBs, you get 2 energy. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 1 energy. If you do, another target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. It's pretty sick.
It's good. A 2-drop that's going to give your next 2 creatures haste is like a very cheap Furnace Strider. Yeah, I like this card a lot.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. And then lastly, shout out to blue-green, Devoid.
We'll see.
First up is Drowner of Truth. This is 5 and green-blue hybrid for a 7/6 Eldrazi. It's Devoid, right? No color. When you cast this spell, if Wingdings was spent to cast it. You create 2/0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens that can sack to add a colorless mana, and it's a green-blue ETB tapped land on the other side. It's big.
Yeah,
It's
so for the
expensive.
uninitiated, Wingdings is colorless mana. I think these Eldrazi spawn, there's ways to ramp into the giant monsters, like good ways to ramp that we've not talked about yet. But normally a card that's like this mopey, I'd be like, I don't know about. But there's a lot of things that care about you casting stuff that cost
that are 7
mana as well. So this being costed 7 is actually a benefit. I kind of like Drown of Truth.
Yeah, I do too.
That takes us on to Eldrazi Vanisher, which is 1 and a colorless mana for a 2/2 at uncommon, and it's got Devoid as well. Kicker green, kicker 1 and a blue. And whenever you cast a spell, if it's kicked with green, you can exile target artifact or enchantment and opponent controls. If it was kicked with 1 and a blue, you can return target creature and opponent controls to its owner's hand there. So very nice, desirable like ETB effect, depending on which way you want to kick it. Or if you're blue-green, you can kick it with both.
Another nice throwback to like those cards from, I think it was like Invasion Block that had the like 2 different kinds of kickers that came in with the Volver cycle at rare and Apocalypse, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's not bad. I wish it like, I don't know what I wish, but like
it looks like it has flying. I wish it had flying.
It does look like it has flying. I wish you kind of got some more beef on this thing for the more mana you spent too.
Ooh, like some +1/+1 counters. Maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right, let's chat about MDFCs, because I think the ETB tap duels, that's one thing. It's like a different way to classify them, or a different way you'll have to think about them for drafting, because I imagine those are going to be high picks again once you know what color pair you're in. You're so like likely to want to have good mana for those decks. The MDFCs otherwise, I'm curious to see how they're going to shake out. So let's chat about them. This is also a lot of where you'll get removal, or a lot of the removal we've seen so far has been in this MTFC space. We've got Razorgrass Ambush, 1 and a white for an instant, deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. And on the other side, it's a white mana source, but it doesn't come into play tapped necessarily. It enters the battlefield, you can pay 3 life. And if you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. So this has the clause of the rare cycle of MDFCs from Zendikar Rising, but this is on the uncommons.
Yeah, I mean, this is powerful. I mean, it's hard to argue that it's not. Like, outside of limited, because we're going to be playing with these a lot in limited. You're going to be putting them in your decks. You're going to be picking them fairly highly, presumably. Are these just auto includes in white modern decks? Because your mana bases are already so painful there.
Well, they can't be fetched, how much life? Though. It can't be fetched. That's a huge
but like
knock.
if you're playing a white modern deck, like just putting this in instead of a plains, if you're running a plains or whatever, you know?
Yeah, if you're running multiple basic planes of your mono white, I don't know. Don't ask me about constructed. It's offensive.
Wait, you're the C word. You're the guy.
I'm the guy.
You're the constructed representative for the podcast. You're like when women are on podcasts with a bunch of men, and women have to speak for women everywhere when they're the one guest on a podcast. You are our constructed representative. You have to speak for the entire podcast community.
Much like I'm sure women don't want to be put in that position. I also do not want to be in the position of being the constructed advocate on this podcast. Yeah, this card seems great. Like, one of the things that a lot of the MDFCs in Zendikar Rising, and to keep referencing them, but that's like what I think of when I see these cards. And we also had that set for like 4 months, so I spent too much time with it. But a lot of them were overcosted, the effects on the front side. This is not overcosted. I mean, maybe you'd like to spend 1 mana to deal 3. Maybe you'd like to spend 2 mana to deal 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, but it's not crazy. Like, this is
a lot of these are priced to move. I agree. Next one we've got is Sink into Stupor. 1 blue for an instant. Return target spell or non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. And then it's a blue land on the backside that you can pay 3 life to have come in untapped. Like, these cards just seem excellent to me.
Yeah, this less so, right? Like, this is just a bounce spell. About 3 mana bounce spell.
Yeah, But it's a free spell. I mean, imagine drawing this instead of drawing your land. Like, it's very good.
Yeah, but this is I'm trying, like, what you're doing, you're the devil on my shoulder right now. And you're just telling me, like, they're free. You could just, you have to, and so I'm just gonna like go into the draft and take these over actual good cards, because I'm like, well, the value of this being free means that it's so good. But that's not it.
That's not it. I agree. So you gotta take the good cards, and then you gotta take like the Bs. And then you gotta take the MBCs. So it's the ABCs of Magic.
Did you say MBCs?
The ABCs.
I think before that you might have said MBCs. We'll check it out in post.
Check the tapes.
So the thing is, and I don't quite remember what we ended up with the math on it, but like you got to a point where you were just replacing these like 1-for-1 with lands, and then the more you had, you sort of bumped up your number of lands in your deck. So if you had like 1 to 3 of these, they replace lands 1-for-1, but you just thought you had an 18 land deck, so you would play like 3 MDFCs plus 15 lands would be your mana base in your deck.
Right.
You know, if you had 6, then you'd do, okay, I have 19 lands or whatever, 20 lands in my deck, but then only 14 basics plus the 6 MDFCs. But I also think you may want to be more thoughtful about the individual ones of like, how likely are you to want to play them as spells or lands? Like the next one, Fell the Profane, 2 black, instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Like, yeah, this is great that if it's in my opener and I've only got 1 other land, sure, I can play this as my land and keep. But like, I'm counting this as a spell in my deck.
I guess, but like the next question is, how good is 2 black destroy something in a Modern Horizons 3 format, right? Is it that good? Like in a normal
die.
Yeah, but there's presumably going to be better rates than this, I would think, in a format as juiced as MH3. So like, then is this actually that good of a card?
That's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, is removal? I don't know. I feel like removal's back.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at the rares and the mythics, but
like this has got to be a synergy format, though, right? And removal's way less important in synergy formats.
That is true.
This is not. I mean, I guess these are play boosters, but
yeah, you're telling me we're not getting Bonnie Paul levels of rares in this format? I doubt it.
We'll see. I will hear no slander against MH3 until we've played with the cards.
Okay.
Moving on to Bridgeworks Battle. We've got 2 and a green for a sorcery. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Fights up to 1 target creature you don't control, and then is green on the backside.
Okay. Yeah. Seems like 3 mana +2/+2 and fight. That's Savage Stomp. We just saw that in the bonus sheet. This card's getting a lot of hype for some constructed formats. The C word. Disciple of Freyalise. 3 triple green for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. So this is like the first, and there's just not a lot of these, but this is the first of these that it's not a removal spell. This is like just a big, weird creature.
Yeah, I'm not particularly. I mean, you're gonna play all of these in limited.
Like once you, yeah, right. Like you'll play this, and if you end up it's just a matter of how highly are you taking this, and how often are you going to be casting Disciple? Remains to be seen.
I would imagine, like as a ballpark guess for most of these MDFCs, you're gonna be picking them 4th through 10th or something, 5th through 10th. That is quite happily.
4th through 10th is like most of a pack.
Yeah, like as in they're not the premium cards in the set.
Yes, I agree.
That was too big of a range for you?
Yeah, just like 4 through 10. That's just like, okay.
4 through 8, whatever. Like not the wheel yet. You'll be thrilled if you get them on the wheel.
There you go.
5 through 8.
The wheel doesn't exist anymore.
We'll narrow it down. You got to make Ethan happy. Next is Witch Enchanter, Disenchanter. Yeah. So this is 3 and a white for a 2/2 uncommon. ETBs destroy target artifact or enchantment and opponent controls, and then white on the back.
I like that.
This is what you want as your MDFC.
That's right. Yeah, you want those nice situational cards. And then we've got Sundering Eruption, 2 and a red for sorcery, destroy target land. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. Oh, and creatures without flying can't block this turn.
Just in case we needed a way to end the games to figure out those board stalls.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah,
That's another one. I mean, you want highly situational cards on your MDFCs. Like those in some ways are almost better, like the white and the red one, despite being much more niche effects, are better than Fell the Profane. Like I'd almost rather have those types of things on my MDFCs that I'm counting as lands than Fell the Profane.
because you're just gonna because you're gonna have other removal than Fell the Profane in your deck, but you're
Right,
not
and presumably
necessarily.
better removal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that take.
All right, we've got a lone removal spell to look at here so far. This is Thraben Charm, 1 and a white for a common at instant. Deals damage equal to twice the number of creatures you control to target creature. You can destroy target enchantment, or exile any number of target players' graveyards. So you get to choose one of those 3.
I mean, this is a common. This is a common.
Wow, he's thrilled. I mean, this card's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, this
You'll play it in your red-white, go wide, aggressive decks.
Sure.
It'll have a home.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's unplayable. I'm just like, this is not an exciting Magic card to me.
No, I agree. It's no Cranial Ram.
Few things are. All right, let's go to one of the big categories here, which is energy. I want to see this. It's interesting because like energy was kind of broken the first time around, and they had to like ban some cards, and it's very interesting to me that they're deciding to return to it. And this first card seems like an absolute banger. It's Tune the Narrative, single blue for an instant, draw a card, you get 2 energy.
Yeah, I mean this card is great. Just give me a Whirler Rogue.
So
like tune the narratives.
I mean that's true. Yeah. We've got like whatever. So Attune with Ether was in the original energy set, and that was single green to search for a land, and then you got 2 energy. And so that wasn't like in some ways that's better because like you know what you're getting. You can like remove a land from your deck, put that in your deck instead, like that sort of thing. When in deck building, I mean, it can replace a land. And so this is different, but like the 2 energy, it's depending on the payoffs that you have places to put that energy. It sort of eludes rectangle theory a little bit because like you do have to sort of talk about it as fractions of a card, but it is a fraction of a card. So this is often like drawing a card and a half for 1 mana.
Right. This is like Ponder levels of power where you're cantripping, but you're also getting a pretty huge benefit while you're cantripping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tune the Narrative quite a bit. Next one, also super pushed. This is Galvanic Discharge. Red for an instant, choose target creature or planeswalker. You get 3 energy, then you pay any amount of energy. Galvanic Discharge deals that much damage to that permanent. So this is a common. So like Lightning Bolt floor at common. This card is
can't
ridiculous.
Go face, but yeah.
So compare this to something like Fell the Profane, right? This is how efficient the good removal can be. And you know what I mean? Like Fell the Profane just looks embarrassing next to Galvanic Discharge.
When you just and you have like, so sure, 1 mana deal 3 on its floor. You have 2 energy floating around from To the Narrative, and all of a sudden this is 1 mana deal 5 at instant speed.
Or 1 mana ping your X1, you're left over with and 2 energy. This card's incredible. Just absolutely insane.
I'm curious about this next one, Royal Cartographer. There's like a slight landfall thing happening. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 at uncommon. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy. So a repeatable way to get energy. And then you can tap this and pay 6 energy and draw 3 cards. A lot of overlap there.
Just put that thing in the old Is It Generatorium and you're going to be drawing up a steam of cards.
Yes, you are.
Like Royal Cartographer quite a bit.
This next card is completely broken.
How is
this a real card?
Yeah, Bloodbraid Elf wasn't quite good enough. So this is Amped Raptor. This is 1 and a red for a 2/1 uncommon at first strike. When it ETBs, you get 2 energy. Then if you cast it from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by paying an amount of energy equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost.
So like, you can just run this out on 2, but also just imagine turn 1, Tune the Narrative. Turn 2, Amped Raptor, and if the thing you flip is 4 MV or less, you're casting it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Insane.
It's ridiculous. I agree.
Oh my god. That seems like, so sure, like the cranial whatever is very good, but like I just haven't seen anything that we've looked at so far that is even remotely close to how busted energy is going to be.
Yeah, it's because it's free. It has no cost.
Free resource.
Yeah. It's really dumb.
Dear. And speaking of busted energy cards, there's Unstable Amulet. It's 1 in a red for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Unstable Amulet deals 1 damage to each opponent. Tap, pay 2 energy, exile the top card of your library. You may play it until you exile another card with Unstable Amulet. So you don't even have to just have that in the tank. It's too expensive or whatever. This isn't busted, but it's good.
This is your own personal Howling Mine.
That's
We're gonna make
that's,
it a thing.
is that 2?
It's 2. I mean, the Howling Mine's broken. It's everywhere in this format.
The counter is there. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Oh, you drew an additional card this turn? Big deal.
You didn't even get to 3 cards in one turn.
2 cards. That's where it's at.
Yeah. And lastly, we've got Tempest Harvester here. This is 1 in a blue for a 2/1 at common. ETBs, you get 2 energy. You can tap, pay an energy to draw a card, discard a card. Good, clean energy looter.
Yeah, this is a common. Just a little dumpstery D-level card. Who cares about this?
No, this is better than that.
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, this is you'll play it, but you're never gonna miss it. It's not good.
I like this card. And again, the art makes it look like it has flying. Could you imagine if it had flying? Ooh, baby. Then it'd be good.
That would be a good card. Another big theme of the format is Eldrazi and Wastes. So if you watch the preview video, they talked about how snow-covered Wastes is back. It sort of completes the cycle. And so in the original Wastes set, and Wastes is a colorless basic land
that you have to draft.
Right, so you have to draft.
There's no wastes at the station.
So hopefully you're not competing with someone else at the table for this, because you don't really want to have to spend a high pick on your wastes. But there's also other ways to get the colorless mana, right? We've seen the Eldrazi spawn tokens. There's Worn Power Stone as a reprint. That's a 3 mana rock that taps for 2 colorless mana, that sort of thing. So you'll be able to do it. And there's also Urza's Cave. So this is an uncommon way to tap for colorless mana. It also has another ability that is not relevant for limited. 3 tap, sack it, search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. But interesting to see how that puzzle is going to shake out. My memory, and I was a bad drafter back then, but my memory was taking the sweet cards with the colorless mana requirements
and then scrambling for colorless mana,
scrambling for wastes and other ways to cast them, and just and double. There are some cards that have double colorless cost in their casting cost. That's it's not just one more. It's infinitely more than 1 colorless mana requirement is 2.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Be careful of those wingdings.
Yeah.
Next, we've got Kozilek's Unsealing. This is 2 in a blue for an enchantment at uncommon with Devoid. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4, 5, or 6, create 2 Eldrazi spawn creature tokens that are 0/1s that sack to add colorless. And whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. You're going to get to 4 cards in one turn.
This card is so sick.
I mean, this is pushed.
This seems really good. This feels like pack 1, pick 1, build around levels of good based on what we've seen from the rest of the card file so far.
Yes, because it's going to, when you're short, on those mana value 4, 5s, or 6s, help you get to, you're not going to end up in a spot where you're stuck.
Right.
And can't get to the 7th mana for your 7-drop. And then as soon as you stick 1 7-drop and draw 3 cards, I assume the game is going to be over.
I mean, I hope it's not over, because I'd like to keep the value train flowing, but you can concede at any time. We've got Path of Annihilation. Oh, this is another sweet build around. 3 and a green for an enchantment as Devoid. When it enters the battlefield, you make 2 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. Eldrazi you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. And whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, you gain 4 life.
So imagine curving
this
Path into Path, or Kozilek's Unsealing into Path. So you make 2 Eldrazi, cast a 4-drop, make 2 Eldrazi from this, plus another 2
plus
Eldrazi.
Plus the 2, yep.
And then your next thing, you play a 7-drop, gain 4 life, draw 3 cards, and you're just off to the races.
I'm salivating a little bit right now.
I know, it's really good. I mean,
it's blue-green.
I mean, normally big ramp stuff has my caution warning signs flashing. Is this really going to work? It's making me a believer right here.
How about the double wingdings here? Breaker of Creation. 6 colorless for an 8/4. When you cast the spell, you gain a life for each colorless permanent you control. It has hexproof from each color. And it has Annihilator 2, the OG Eldrazi ability. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents.
I'm not a fan.
I am
This
not
card
either.
seems very hard to cast for not that good of an effect.
I agree.
We used to just get 8 mana for 8/8s with Annihilator back
With
in the
Annihilator
day.
2, that had to attack every turn, but yeah.
That's what you wanted to do with your 8/8 Annihilator card. It was
Not-
upside. You couldn't
Not a big
misplay with
ask.
it.
Yeah, right. You couldn't misplay.
Next, we've got Pathraiser of Biolante. This is 2 and a colorless for a 2/2 Eldrazi drone at uncommon. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create an 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token, and whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Thoughts?
Build around, play, please.
I don't like this one.
I wish it was.
This is way worse than the 2 enchantments. This is small ball.
I know,
like in a
it's-
deck that wants to play big ball.
Yes, I agree. I think like you'll probably end up playing it, but you're never taking it highly, and like you're never gonna miss it. I don't think.
That is my gut feeling about it as well.
We've also got It That Heralds the End. It's 1 and a colorless for a 2/2. It says colorless spells you cast with mana value 7 or greater cost 1 less to cast. Okay, so your 7 drops or 6 drops, and other colorless creatures you control get +1/+1. That I'm into.
Yeah, but again, like this is just way worse than both of those build around enchantments we looked at.
It's just different. Like I agree with you in terms of I don't see this pack one pick one and go, ooh, I want to like build around this, or I want to go into the Eldrazi or Devoid deck for this, the way I do about those enchantments. But this is good. Like turning your Eldrazi spawn into 1/2s, that's a really big game.
Right, you're right. And maybe red green. I just have blue green on the brain. Maybe red green is a little more Devoid beatdown.
Sure.
And we just haven't seen it yet. And then this plus maybe that other one that I was poo pooing are a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like if red green is a little more mid range small ball beatdown.
Yeah, I could buy that. Well, speaking of, their Spawn Gang Commander, a nice throwback. 3 red for a 2/2 with Devoid. And when you cast it, you make 3/0/1 spawn creature tokens, and you can pay 1 and a colorless, sack an Eldrazi, and it deals 2 damage to any target.
Well, that card's just absurd.
The card's awesome. Now, the thing is that like, and this is a card that like, a lot of the cards we've seen so far with colorless and their cost go along with the Eldrazi spawn, so you can have the Eldrazi spawn, sacrifice them to cast them, to ramp them out, whatever. This is a card that makes me go like, man, I really want to make sure I pick up a wastes or 2 so that I can activate this without having to sacrifice an Eldrazi.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We've also got another sweet one here, which is Eldrazi Ravager. This is 5 and a colorless for a 6/6 at uncommon with Annihilator 1. Sacrifice 2 Eldrazi to return this from your graveyard to your hand. And it's got cycling 2. It's just a very flexible card. I really like that one. I wish it cost 7, honestly. I think it's kind of a downside that it costs 6, but it's a good card.
That's funny, yeah. Yeah. And lastly, there's Wumpus Aberration. 3 and a green for a 6/6 with Devoid and Trample. 4 mana 6/6 Trample. When you cast the spell, if colorless wasn't spent to cast it, target opponent may put a creature card from their hand onto the battlefield. So what we haven't seen yet in this, in the life of this, but I have to imagine we're going to, is like whatever, what it was in the original Rise of the Eldrazi set. They're like 1 and a green, 2/2 brings along a spawn. Like, you think we're going to get something like that?
I would hope so.
And so just like Wumpus Aberration on 3?
I mean, you saw Marshall losing to it in the preview video.
That's true. That's true.
Are you really asking the designers, are you really glad you put Trample on this thing? Or maybe he was winning with it or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, the Eldrazi, I'm like very tentative because I feel like I got excited about it the last time. And like I said, I was very bad at Magic, scrambling for wastes. But like a couple of those build around enchantments just seem so sweet.
Kozilek's Unsealing has me sold, I think. Kozilek's Unsealing seems really, really good. Like, so there are a few cards we've talked about that are way better than the rest. Like Cranial Ram sticks out to me. Kozilek's Unsealing, the blue build around that pays you off for getting to 7 mana and lets you draw 3 cards. That seems like a format archetype defining limited card to me.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about drawing 3 cards. I'm so like, I was like, what is this? And then I started to piece it together as I was looking through the cards. I was like, oh, I think this is going to be sweet. So there's
It's gonna
mine.
be fun. I don't know if it's gonna be good, but you're
Yes.
gonna
Yeah.
have fun while you're dying if it's not good.
Yeah. Notice I said sweet. Ben said fun. Neither of us have put a stamp on whether this will be competitive or not. So there's mindless conscription, 2 and a black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield and whenever you draw your 3rd card each turn, amass zombies 3.
But that makes me think it's going to be good enough because you get it on the front. It's like Roost of Drakes or whatever.
Yes.
Like you
Yes.
just get the thing for free, and then just absolute upside. But Amass is a little trickier because you need to go wide. I wish you just got a new 3/3 every time you drew 3 cards instead of growing taller.
I don't know. Yeah, but like, are you really going to be mad about having a 6/6 with haste when you do it the next time?
Certainly not.
So for folks who don't know, Amass 3 is you put 3 +1/+1 counters on an army you control. It's also a zombie, and if you don't control an army, you make a 0/0 black zombie armor creature token first, and then you put the counters on it. So it's effectively making a 3/3, but you can't make multiple 3/3s. So once you have amassed once, then you're just going to dump the counters on that creature.
Next, we've got Kami of Jealous Thirst. This is 2 and a black for a common at 1/3 with Death Touch. And you can pay 4 and a black to have each opponent lose 2 life and gain 2 life. And this ability costs 4 and a black less to activate if you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn. Activate only once each turn. So you get to do this for free when you meet the requirements. This is a sweet card.
So like you get like I feel like there's the reverse way to think about this is that this is just a 3 mana 1/3 Death Touch and it just says whenever you draw your 3rd card, drain 2.
You get a drain 2, gain 2, plus, and then later in the game, if you want to speed the process up, you can activate it.
I don't know. It's like, and a 3 mana 1/3 Death Touch. I mean, it's a little expensive, but like, it's gonna get its man. Like, it's gonna trade with something as a Death Toucher. Like, kind of into this card, and in theory, no one else should want it, and so it should be like a common you'll get late. Like, the wheel might exist with this card, and that's a pretty sweet spot to be in. In terms of enablers, there's Brain Surge, 2 and a blue instant, draw 4 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So just boom, one shot, get to trigger that stuff.
We've also got a reprint here that's going to slot beautifully into this archetype, which is Deep Analysis, which is 4 and a blue for a sorcery to draw 2 cards. And then it's got Flashback for 1 and a blue, pay 3 life to draw 2 cards again. And that's going to get you 2 instances of drawing 3 cards in a turn.
I didn't even put it together. I saw Deep Analysis as a reprint, and I was like, why not? Like that's from like Odyssey. That's like, what is that? 20 years old or something. Like, but yeah, kind of slaps. Feels like it's going to have a spot here for sure.
There's also a couple really good artifact payoffs that look exciting. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm probably more excited for black-red artifacts than I am blue-red energy. There's Marionette Apprentice, which is 1 and a black for an uncommon. It's a 1/2 with Fabricate 1, and whenever the creature or artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life.
So close. Why can't you gain I can't gain a life too as a treat?
Gain a life too. You don't need to gain a life too. This card's gonna be good.
Yeah, that card seems awesome. There's also Frogmere Enforcer, a nice double throwback. It's a 7 mana 4/4. It also has Prototype for 3 and a red as a 2/2, and it has Affinity for Artifacts. Yeah, the Affinity for Artifact stuff, like artifacts in red-black, is really appealing to me. It's actually a lot of stuff. None of the white stuff is appealing to me so far, but like blue-green, red-green, the blue-black draw, the black-red artifact, blue-red energy, all that stuff seems super sweet. Can I get a pulse check on these 2 5-drops? That seem broken to me? They're broken, right?
I think one of them is. I think the other one is not.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that you think Worm Coil Larva is broken.
Yes.
I thought this was a rare. Like, I'd seen this floating around, and I was like, well, they made Worm Coil Engine like a rare instead of a mythic. That's cool. Then I saw it was an uncommon. This is 3 black for a 3/3 artifact creature, Phyrexian Worm, Death Touch, lifelink. So 5 mana 3/3 Death Touch, lifelink. And when it dies, it splits into a 1/2 with Death Touch and a 2/1 with lifelink.
Card's very good. It's no Worm Coil Engine, but it's very good. I'm with you.
What is the distinction you're making?
This card's great. It's very good. You should pick it highly. You should put it in your deck. The next one I am not so jazzed about. It's a Voltstorm Angel, 3 white for a 4/4 uncommon flying angel. Whenever ETBs, you get 3 energy. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can pay 2 energy. When you do, choose 1. This gains Vigilance and Lifelink until end of turn, or other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
I mean, it can just do this the turn it comes in. 5 mana 4/4 flyer that gives your team +1/+1 the turn it comes in.
It's Dawn Feather Eagle. Like, is that
But
good?
that was a 3/3. It's a
Yeah, this
4/4.
is a 4/4.
And it can do the Vigilance Lifelink thing too. I don't know.
Yeah, and it can do it repeatedly.
Yeah.
This is probably better than I'm giving it credit for.
I
It's
mean, I agree.
good. I mean,
I agree. It's
there's nothing to not like about this card. It is all
well,
upside.
except that like one of the things that I'm going to try and be better about that I feel like I missed a little bit with in OTJ, speaking specifically about Cactarantula and Spinewood's Paladin, was like just sort of blanketly knocking big dumb stuff. Like stuff that costs 5 mana, whatever, like can't be good, it's all replaceable. But some stuff is a cut above the rest. And obviously it's easy to peg Wormcoil Larva as being very good. Voltstorm Angel, it really could go either way, right? Like we could in a few weeks be like, this is one of the best uncommons. Or we could be like, this is a common. This isn't really anything, you know?
Yeah, I tend to be leaning towards the latter direction, but I mean, if you, I guess the other, so much of it's going to depend on how good the white energy archetypes are, right?
Right.
Like if
Yeah.
those archetypes end up being the best archetypes, this will be very good. If they are not, this will be not very good.
Yeah.
And based on the things we've seen so far, that's not what I'm excited to try right now.
Yeah. All right, we've got a couple like throwbacks to other spells. They do this like Modern Horizons 3 is it's sort of where they scratch their like time spiral itch, right? Where they're just like, here's a bunch of throwbacks and here's a bunch of like Easter eggs for Magic players. And so we've got Serum Visionary. This reminds me of Ponder Mage from one of the other Modern Horizons sets. It's 2 and a blue for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and then you scry 2. So it's Serum Visions tacked on to a creature.
Yeah, jury's out for me on this card. Like, it's a great Magic the Gathering card, right? In a normal limited set, you would always play this, but is the power level going to be juiced enough in MH3 that this just isn't synergistic enough anywhere and then ends up being like kind of whatever? Because it's not going to get you to your third card in
Right.
a turn. And then, like, I just don't know if it's good enough. So, like, it's weird to think about things like that for an MH3, but just for somebody who's not played a Masters format, like, this card looks great and would be great in a normal limited format. Is it going to be great in MH3? My guess is probably not.
One of the things I'm thinking about when I look at this card is it in conjunction with the draw 3 matters, and like to not poo poo stuff that only draws one additional and only be looking for ways to one shot trigger it. And maybe there's enough of that stuff, but like just think of like there's the looter that I poo pooed earlier, right? The 1 and a blue 2/1 that gave you 2 energy, and then you could pay an energy, tap it, draw a card, discard a card. So like that's a free way to get an additional card. And then you have Serum Visionary, and those two in tandem, that'll trigger your draw 3 stuff on your own turn. And so you may be looking to piece those things together as well. But I agree with you, like largely, I'm not looking at this and am not excited about this in blue red energy. I'm not excited about this in blue green Eldrazi. Don't quite yet know what blue white is doing, but I assume it's energy based. And so then blue black is really the only spot where I'm like, well, I could see this having a home there.
Yeah, that checks out to me. And I like just thinking about it too in context of stuff we've already talked about, like Cranial Ram, like the power level of that card is
Right.
going to provide, or the power level of the curve out you talked about with tune the narrative into the 2/1 first striker, the amped raptor, or whatever it's called. That stuff is more the power level of a Masters format, more than eke out a little value with my Serum Visionary on ETB. All right, next we've got Ethereum Terramander. This is black for a 1/1 and uncommon with flying, and it can only block creatures with flying. And then it's got 6 and a black, adapt 4. Its ability costs 1 less to activate for each other artifact you control, which presumably in red-black will be a lot.
Right. Remains to be seen how many ways you'll have, and presumably they will exist, but how many ways you'll have to get multiple artifacts from one, like have multiple rectangles from one card, because that's the stuff that's going to really turn the affinity for artifact stuff on. I mean, this effectively has the activated ability has affinity for other artifacts. So like, haven't seen that yet, but the payoffs are there. So I have to imagine the enablers will be there.
Yep.
All right. It is now time for everyone's, and by everyone's I mean my favorite segment of the episode, great or garbage. Kicking things off, a card that Ben already teased a little bit. He already tipped his hand about where he's at. This is Essence Reliquary. 2 and a white for an artifact. Tap. Return another target permanent you control and all auras you control attached to it to their owner's hand. Activate only during your turn.
I mean, if I have to put a label on it, I'm going to put garbage on it. But garbage, I'm going to be playing with for sure. And early in the format, you're going to get things where people try to do the thing where they sandbag their removal till your turn, and you're just going to get a like, oops, pick up your creature because your opponents are going to misplay because this card's really weird. I don't know. This card cannot be great. So therefore, it has to be garbage. But there's going to be some cool stuff to pick up.
I mean, yeah, you already shouted out the red-white signpost, the scurry of gremlins, like just getting 2 energy and 2 gremlins with this. I mean, it's a lot of mana, right? And you're investing in that, but like that's just a 2-card engine right there. Like we get to do that every turn.
This will win the late game quite handily. Whether or not white decks need a way to do that,
correct,
remains to be seen. So I'm gonna start with garbage, but a garbage card that I'm excited about, which I'm all about.
Yeah. Next we have Dreadmobile, 2 and a black for a 3/3 with menace. Pay 1, sack another artifact or creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on Dreadmobile, and it has a crew cost of 1.
This is a beater.
This is huge. Crew cost of 1. Now, again, sack another artifact or creature. Where is that fodder? But it's got to be there. I mean, I guess we saw the one signpost that has Fabricate 1. So that's a way to get like an artifact servo. There's going to be more of that stuff floating around, right?
Well, but this is just, yeah. I'm not worried about the fodder. I'm just like, it's going to be impossible to play against, too. This is Arcbound Ravager with Menace, essentially.
Well, it has a cost. Right? You have to pay a cost. It does,
but like, by the time this goes around, you're going to have 4 or 5 mana. Like, is your opponent really going to be able to profitably block an 8/8 Menace? Like, when you go all in?
That's how I'm so
you know what I mean?
I didn't even think about the sort of end game of like, you're at 8. You kind of have to like, because the threat of activation is there too.
Yeah, the threat of activation is there. This card is
this card's insane.
Busted. This card's very good. This is great.
This is just actual great. Doesn't even need to go in this category. That's so funny. Okay.
Next, we've got Evolution Witness. This is 2 and a green for a 2/1 at common. It's got 1 and a green, adapt 2. So no +1/+1 counters. Then you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on this, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand.
So
it's tough. This falls in the Serum Visionary camp.
It does. It helps a lot if I think about it as just assuming you're casting this on 5. Like you think about it as 3 green for a 4/3 that returns something from your graveyard to your hand. I'm not sure how good that is, but then there is the addition of if you have other ways to put counters on stuff, right? After like the adapt is a free way sort of to do it, but if you just have a way to put a +1/+1 counter on something, you get to do it again. So like,
yes,
but is any of that good in the year of our Lord 2024?
Well, all of that sounds good to me, except we haven't seen much self-mill yet, which you'd really want to juice this up.
Right. Plus, Black-Green is not graveyard stuff this time around.
It's not graveyard stuff, no. But the other thing that worries me is the scenario where you're putting other +1/+1 counters on this seems totally bonkers to me. And then would they really have made this a common if you're doing that much? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's also weird to me because I can see the pop-off potential with this, but it feels tough for this to be a common and be that broken. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's why I kind of like it. Feel every fiber of my being is like, you can't rate this garbage.
That's what I feel also, but I kind of want to give it garbage.
But I think it's garbage.
Okay. Like, I don't know. I'm going to say garbage and be willing to be very wrong about it.
Okay. That's fair. There's a handful, we haven't chatted about them yet, but we get to them now. A handful of sagas.
This is an uncommon. I knew this was an uncommon. This is how I introduced you, and you were like, this is a rare or a mythic.
Oh, but I was asking if that was Grist, if it was like Grist, the Hunger Tide. I don't know.
No.
Okay. The Hunger Tide rises. We've come full circle. It was an uncommon all along. What does this card do?
This is 2 and a green for an uncommon. Chapters 1, 2, and 3. You create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token. Chapter 4. Sacrifice any number of creatures. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of creatures sacrificed this way and put it onto the battlefield. If you do, search your library this way, shuffle.
I'm sure you're going to tell me why this isn't, but this card seems horrible to me.
I agree. This also seems pretty garbagey.
Like,
maybe
it's
there's some
so
cool
long.
maybe there's some cool Jund artifacts deck where you can combo your opponent out with Marionette Enforcer.
Okay.
Sacrifice your whole board and dome them out.
Okay.
I've got his curiosity.
I mean,
peaked, folks. The gears are turning. That's the Ethan Sachs special.
That's still
a bunch of cards that are terrible combined for one big kill punch.
That's still garbage, but I am excited to send you a screenshot of an Arena Open draft deck where that's how I win. Yeah, I just it's just so slow. Like 3 mana for 3 1/1 insects is sort of just like, okay. And but you don't get you have to wait 3 turns. And then by that point on the 4th turn, do I really want to just go sack these for a 3-drop?
Yeah, this is probably more of a flavor win than anything else.
Yeah. Next up, we have a Johnny Fells the Godsire. 3 white for a saga. First chapter, exile target creature and opponent controls with power 3 or greater. Chapter 2, make a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. Then put a vigilance counter on a creature you control. And chapter 3, target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. This is just great.
Is it? I figured you wouldn't like this card. You're usually
I know. I think
hating on the main decking power 3 or greater things.
But that's power 4 or greater. All that stuff is power 4 or greater that I hate.
Oh, so 3 or greater. That's good.
That's most things.
That is most things. I agree.
Yeah, when I initially saw this, I was like, oh, that's kind of expensive sorcery speed, but exile is big. This is just gonna kill the best thing on the battlefield when it comes down, and then you get a 2/1, and the vigilance counter and the double strike until end of turn are both flexible, right? You get your 2/1, and then all of a sudden some flyers getting double strike on the 3rd chapter. I think all of that adds up to this card is great.
And it's a permanent that you can pick up with Essence Reliquary. Just mow those opposing creatures down. I am into Johnny Fells the Godsire. Yeah, I also think this card is great, and you better believe I'm going to be putting this in a deck with Essence Reliquary.
I had not even considered picking up sagas with that Derby artifact.
Yeah, that's what this greater garbage segment is an ode to. So next up we've got Tamiyo Meets the Story Circle, which is 1 and a blue for an uncommon. Chapter 1, until your next turn, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets -2/-0 until end of turn. Chapter 2, discard any number of cards and investigate twice for each card discarded this way. Chapter 3, shuffle up to 3 target cards from your graveyard into your library.
Loops.
I mean, yeah.
It's only 3.
It is only 3, but I mean, still kind of gets you there.
This card seems terrible.
No, this card's going to be great.
No way. Great?
I mean, not great, but it's going to do enough stuff. I'm going to be playing with this card for sure. So I think it's got some small things going for it. It's a way to dump a bunch of artifact tokens onto the battlefield if you need that. So let's say there's some Marionette Apprentice shenanigans going on again, or maybe you've got a Grixis artifact deck to give you a bunch of things there, to turn cards that are stuck in your hand into ways to power up your artifact synergies. Maybe some affinity bleed there in the Grixis. I've got the gears turning. It's a bit of a stretch. I know.
It's a bit of a stretch to be this is enabling, what are you splashing this in your black-red affinity for artifacts deck? No, you're not.
Probably not.
I mean, I get that, it's a way to, sort of, you have to pay 4 mana for it, but you discard 2 cards, then you got 4 clues, and now the next 2 times you spend 4 mana, you trigger your draw 3 stuff. It's just so much do nothing.
It's a lot of do nothing, but I mean, the chapter 1 helps you do nothing. I think this card's got some potential. I think it is. If we have to give it a greater garbage grade, it probably gets garbage. But again, Garbage that I'm excited to play about. How often do you hear that in this segment?
From you, never. Almost never. Next, we have Trickster's Elk. 2 and a green for 3/3. It has Bestow for 1 and a green. So this is our first instance of Bestow. And if you cast this card, so this is an enchantment creature, and you can pay the Bestow cost to cast it as an aura spell with enchant creature. And it becomes a creature again if it's not attached. So the way this works is like you can't 2-for-1 people with Bestow auras. We should just say that out because we haven't talked about these. So like if you're suiting up your own creature, if you're bestowing upon your own creature and they go to kill the creature out from under the aura, they don't 2-for-1 you. Your creature just comes into play as normal, as not an aura. So this one though, a little different because it's Trickster's Elk, 2 and a green, 3/3. The bestow costs 1 and a green. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness, 3/3.
This card is wildly confusing to me. Are you supposed to put this on your opponent's creatures?
You can, right? That
And if so, does it fall off? When it falls off, do you get the 3/3?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you own the aura as well.
You control it, right? Yeah.
I think this is just yours. So I think that's what it's supposed to be. But like Kasmina's whatever, or is that what it is? Karametra's transmutation, the like original of this, of the aura, turn a thing into a 3/3, and you drew a card. Like that was whatever. You don't really want to turn a thing into a 3/3. That's still a problem, actually.
I agree. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, does this card actually do?
I think this is just a joke. I think this is just like an Easter egg. It's like, oh, look what we did.
That's what I was trying to figure out. So this card is in fact garbage. That's what we're saying. I think
so. Yeah.
Okay, that was what my inclination was when I read it, but I was just thoroughly like, it seems so bad. if it's garbage.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
The days of me being like, well, it's so modal, like the base of it's a 3-mana 3/3, and then like you can nerf your opponent's thing or you can buff your 1/1. It's just like none of that matters, I think.
Maybe it does, and maybe it's playable in green white because you care about being able to suit up your own stuff enough. I don't know.
Lastly, we have Static Prison. Take us home here.
Single white for an enchantment at uncommon. Whenever it ETBs, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Static Prison leaves the battlefield. You get 2 energy. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, sacrifice Static Prison unless you pay an energy.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you can choose to do it pre-combat in your first main, but then you'll have to start paying for it. You could do it second main, and you won't have to pay for it next turn, but that means you wouldn't have been able to attack, through that creature.
Right, you're paying if you ever want to attack through the thing.
I'm inclined to say great.
I'm also inclined to say great. This card is as good as the amount of energy you're making.
Right. And also, it's also as good as how fast you can close the game out. Like, right. If Boros is aggro energy,
this card's insane.
Like 1 mana, exile the thing, and like, I don't care. The game's over in 3 turns. Like,
right. Yes.
And just the double spell potential of this. I do think this is great.
Yeah, I also agree. I think this is great as well. Very cool twist on a removal spell.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. Synergy's back. I missed it.
I agree. I do. That's my current take, is that I think Synergy is back, and I think all this play booster stuff we've been talking about is gonna get tempered down a little bit with MH3. And I think the other thing that's going to be really cool is this format looks just so deep. So deep as far as the amount of interactions we've already seen, and we've still not seen a lot of the commons, which is certainly I think going to drive the synergy discussion. But I'm very optimistic about this set.
What the commons look like and what the fixing looks like are my 2 big questions right now. Just because I feel like that's gonna lead a lot. Like, is this going to be a lot more streamlined 2-color pair stuff? Because what it seems like to me is there's a lot of encouragement in some 3-color wedge bleed. Like that you're going to often be, okay, I'm blue-green, but I've got a little red, or I'm green-white, but I've got a little black. And I think the fixing component of things is going to really let us know. And also, how much fixing there is going to really be important for the sealed RCQ that I'm going to attend in a couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, 2 thumbs up for me right now from MH3.
Yeah.
Very, very excited to dive into it. And I think the other thing that we shouted out at the beginning, I think if you're like a little overwhelmed right now, I think stick with it. Like these formats traditionally have been awesome, the master style formats. And I think if you're wanting to level up at Magic or wanting to get better at Magic, these more complex formats are the way to do it. I have a feeling that once this comes out, OTJ is just going to be kind of dead in the water, but maybe that's just me pushing my perspective on it. But I think this is what everybody's going to be doing in the summer, certainly online on Arena.
Well, and especially exactly because normally you could make the argument for like, well, it's a master set, so it's a little bit more expensive and the price point may push people out. Like on Arena, it's just the same.
Yeah, I think this is what the world is going to be doing on Arena.
The world.
I think if you're on the fence about this format, I would highly encourage you to give it a try.
Where is this energy?
Podcasting.
Have you been getting some takes that people are a little tentative about this format?
No, but I could see, like, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's been playing Magic for 3 years, that likes Magic, that's never cubed. I think that person, like, might think, I'll just keep playing OTJ. You know?
Okay.
Like online, I think it would be very easy to stay in your comfort zone. Like, do you want to learn 40 new mechanics?
Yes. Seems awesome.
Not everyone's as obsessed with Magic as me and you.
That part of it does seem daunting. Like the new set, the synergy stuff, I'm like, just get over it. But the 40 new mechanics, that is overwhelming.
Yeah. So give it a try. Stick with us. We'll get you all sorted out. It's a great place to wrap up the episode. Thank you, as always, to Salty Pretzels for our intro and outro music. Make sure you give it a listen.
Head on over to lordslimited.com for all things Lords Limited related. We've got our merch, courtesy of TeePublic. We've got our Patreon page, links and information there. We've got tier lists for all the sets. Backlogs. We'll have an MH3 tier list in the coming weeks. We've got links to our content other than the podcast, our YouTube channel, our Twitch streams, respectively. All that good stuff can be found at lordsoflimited.com.
If you've got any feedback about the show or any questions, shoot us an email at lordsoflimited@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Lords of Limited.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.